What's going on, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast. Facci and I are here on a Friday night thinking we're going to talk about a massive game. ESPN, the lights are bright. Pacers back in Madison Square Garden. How do they handle this Knicks team that has been remade? And what do they do, Facci? They lay an egg pretty much after the 7-minute mark in the second quarter. Get outscored 27-10 in the second. End up losing the game 123-98. Just a pathetic performance overall from Indiana. Really embarrassing. 25 points doesn't really even show how bad this game was. So, anyway, we're here to talk about this game. We have a lot of talking points, but where do you want to start?
I mean, the stage was set, but we got stage fright. This was a game that I felt like, the Garden, one of the biggest stage nationally televised. Like, this is your opportunity to say, hey, look, everybody is overlooking the Indiana Pacers. And then you look at the other side for the Knicks, they probably felt like this is revenge. And they came out with just a different type of energy tonight. The Pacers were never able to match it. And I felt like there's a lot of times, where in my opinion, I don't think the Pacers were ever threatened this game. They, of course, the first quarter it was close, but the starting five never looked like they truly had it going. And I didn't see it in preseason. I really didn't see it against Detroit. And the sample size is still small, but we have yet to see our Indiana Pacers from last year.
This Pacers team, they scored, I believe it was 31 points, Facci. The starters scored 31 points overall in this game.
Not a made
So,
three. Not a made three from the starting
yeah.
five. How about that?
Yeah, I forget what it ended up being, right? What was the total count there? I think it was like
I
0
think
of
it was over
17.
17. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, you know what I mean? If you don't shoot the three ball well, this Pacers team pretty much depends on that. They went 3 of 30 from the field, okay? You go back and look at who the Knicks played on Tuesday night opening night. They played Boston, and Boston had like a franchise high or something stupid like that, like 29 made threes. So it's like the tale of two halves here, with the Pacers and the Celtics shooting. But like to me, this was deeper than, oh, we didn't make our shots. Oh, this, that, and that. It was an effort thing. It was
Yes.
really a pathetic performance. And I hate to say it like that because I don't want to like overreact too much in game two, but I didn't feel good about game one. I thought, okay, they
Didn't.
they they snuck by Detroit. They won the game. They took care of business. Let's see if they get the wake up call. I talked about this after the Hornets game, right? In the preseason. I said the starters just didn't look good at all. I said, I think that this is going to be a wake up call for Indiana in New York after they get their butts kicked. And I said that last week. So I'm hoping that I'm kind of predicting this, prophesying what's going to happen in the Pacers home opener against Philadelphia. But this starting lineup to me, it is just baffling to me how disconnected they are. I really don't understand it because this is a team that just went on a run to the Eastern Conference Finals with that five as the main core, and they played really well at times together. And now they don't seem in sync, and I don't know what's changed. Maybe nothing's changed, but maybe they're just not in the right mindset. I don't know, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like they're connecting, and that to me is a little bit surprising.
It is. I mean, so far, I think that the Pacers have played one good quarter of basketball in the regular season, that fourth quarter against Detroit. But this group, the one thing that we talked about is you look around Knicks, you look around at Philadelphia, like added some good players, but we thought that might take some time. The one thing Indiana has is chemistry and, continuity. I can never pronounce that word. Just being, having the same team, bringing it back. And I felt like we have not seen them pick up the magic where they left off last year. It's been frustrating. The talent's there. I just think guys are missing wide open shots. But in reality, a big part is Tyrese hasn't been Tyrese. He hasn't. He got bailed out against Detroit by hitting the biggest shot of the game when it mattered most. It was a huge shot. All props to him. He was 6 of 18 in that game. Now we go to this game against New York. We knew they were going to be coming for him. It was obviously going to be something where it's like, hey, they're going to take a lot of pride in trying to can they hold down Tyrese Haliburton. Alex, scoreless, 0 of 8, 0 of 7 from 3. I've said it before. He's settling for too many three-pointers. He's not driving to the lane. How can you be a threat to get to the free throw line if you don't pass the three-point line? We're not seeing him do it that much anymore.
You had said some stuff to me off air before we started via text message about Tyrese, and I didn't give you any response yet because I kind of want to let you set the stage here for how you're feeling and then give a rebuttal. So tell me what you were saying off air about Tyrese because I think it was something along the lines of you think teams have figured him out.
I'm worried. I'm worried. I do think that teams have really started to kind of, put that pressure on him. And I feel like he's rarely even leaving the 3-point line anymore. He just doesn't look like he's ever getting, loose at any point. And I think that when Tyrese is able to draw defenders, that's when he's able to kick it out. And I feel like we're seeing low assist numbers. We're not seeing him drive to the lane much. I think that whatever it is, like this is a guy that was a 40% 3-point shooter for the majority of his career. Last year was the first time where he was below 40% in a season. He's not even shooting the three ball well right now. I just feel like I'm getting a little bit worried. I am, and look, I know it's a small sample size this year, but wasn't playing that much at Team USA. You could write that off. You could say there was the hamstring injury that hampered him. It's been a while since that hamstring injury occurred in January. At some point, you gotta heal, and then it comes down to like, okay, like are other teams just doing a better job on you defensively? And I feel like they are.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying about what teams are doing to him defensively, and I question that myself. Is it what other teams are doing to make Tyrese change the way they're playing? But to me, I don't really think it's that. To me, most of the 3-point shots he's getting, they're pretty good looks.
Yeah.
It's not like he's not open on these 3-point shots. He's just not hitting them. And I think the main reason why is because he's not initiating the offense enough, in my opinion. Too often, if he brings the ball up the court, he's quickly getting the ball out of his hands to Nimhard, and then he goes stands in the corner.
Mhm.
And we know that, like you said, teams are putting more pressure on him. But how many times do we really see him run a lot of pick and roll in these last couple of games? I feel like it's not
Not
been
enough.
that much.
No, not enough.
And if you go back and look at who this team was before they acquired Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Haliburton was running the ball up and down the court almost every single play. And everything went through him. He was his go-to scorer. It was like, I'm the guy, I got to put the ball in the basket. And then the way they've kind of played with him off ball now, it doesn't feel like he's playing at the same level. And it feels
No.
like he's almost passive and not aggressive at looking for a shot. And you mentioned it, settling for way too many
Right.
threes. He's got to learn how to get into the paint, get to the free throw line, and even pull up in that mid range. We've talked about it last year in the playoffs. Like in the mid range, when they're overplaying him from the outside, like if he can drive by him and get to the mid range, pull up for like an 18-footer and make that, like that's going to open up so much more of his game. He hasn't seen the ball go in enough in this season so far to kind of give him that confidence that he can start making these. But I understand why they're doing it to a certain degree. Like Pascal, you bring the ball up the court. We can all do this. We're a team. Blah 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 blah. That's fine. That you can do that at times, but Halliburton's your guy. Halliburton's one of the best point guards, if not the best true point guard in
Mhm.
the NBA. Camping him out in the corner to try to use him as a floor spacer like they were doing with Buddy Hield because they don't have a lot of 3-point shooting because Nemhard's not a great 3-point shooter. Neesmith is streaky as all get out. Siakam's not really been a great career 3-point shooter. This starting five, it's got some talent, but they're definitely missing some floor spacing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that's really kind of clogging up what their offense looked like at the beginning of the season last year when you go back, and it was really fun because you had the Buddy Hills out there, you had the Bruce Browns out there, even Obi Toppin shot the ball incredibly well last year. So everybody was kind of spacing the floor really well. And now I mean, Neesmith shot the ball like crazy good last year at the beginning of the season too.
Way
So
too good. He was
yeah,
shooting like 50% from three for a while. Jalen Smith was at like 47%. I mean, they were unrealistic numbers, but it just showed it was working. Like we were attacking the perimeter from a 3-point standpoint. It has not been like that this year.
no. And so that's why I'm just saying, like with Tyrese, we saw so much fun from Tyrese in that in-season tournament run, right? The skipping down the court, the giving the Dame time, the things like that. We have not seen that version of Tyrese
None.
since he went down with that injury. I'm not saying that the injury is still present, but I am wondering two things. Number one, are the Pacers overthinking it by taking the ball out of his hands too much and trying to let everybody else kind of initiate and use him as a spacer? And number two, is Tyrese mentally worried about getting his hamstring re-injured by playing how he used to play so fast, doing everything? It's almost like now he's almost taking plays off where before he was never taking a play off on offense, and I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, look, the Pacers just didn't look fast tonight. They don't. I just don't think they were able to ever get in a rhythm and play their style of ball. From Halliburton's standpoint, I'm with you. I don't think it could still be an injury. Like he barely played in Team USA. Like you had the offseason. I understand that he was busy, but it's like the initial injury occurred in January. It's the end of October now. Like it's got to be healed. But I do think there is a mental standpoint in there. Like I think he needs to just have that type of confidence game where he does, go off and score like 25 points. He's getting into the lane, he's getting to the free throw line, like things like that. He shot 2 free throws through 2 games. That's not good. And like right now, yeah, I mean, I felt like last game against Detroit, he put up 18 shots. Like you could live with him. I said it. Hey, he was 0 of 8 from three before he hit the biggest one. Shooter shoot, great. But like I watched Jalen Brunson tonight, and we know that these two are on two different levels in terms of like being aggressive. Brunson started 0 for 4. And I was like, oh, hey, look, we're doing pretty good on him with Neesmith. He kept shooting. He figured it out. By halftime, he was 5 of 8. It's like Brunson's going to be the guy who's going to keep shooting until he sees that ball go in so he gets in a rhythm. I felt like for Haliburton, he just kept settling for like 1 3 at a time, missing it. He never really just said, all right, you know what, that's it. I'm going for it. I'm just going to score a basket. And I just feel like I'm getting a little bit worried. I know some of the fan base is. It's a classic overreaction. It's just game two, but we want to see vintage Haliburton. And honestly, it's been a while since we've seen it. You could probably say game seven against the Knicks was the last time I felt like he really did look like himself. And that wasn't that many basketball games in retrospect for him, but it just feels like those moments have been a little bit too few and far in between. And we missed the old Tyrese.
No, we do. And I mean, the takes are killing me on social media, right?
I know they're aggressive. They're aggressive.
Yeah, it's like people are posting the videos of him and his girl and two other girls. They were like wishing 50
Yeah.
Cent a congratulations message at like 4:30 in the morning. I had a guy at work ask me about that. He's like, isn't he with a girl? I'm like, well, his girl's in the video, bro. Like, just relax. Like
Yeah.
it's just chill. Like if he has other girls with him, it could be his girl's friends. You just never know. So but yeah, there's things like that. People think he's getting I saw I don't know how many times too big for his britches on social media in my comment section tonight, and they're like he's just he's gotten big time now. And then I even saw people saying ever since he switched to Puma he's not shooting the ball as well. It's like he has been struggling since he came back. I think Doris Burke said he shot like 32% from three once he returned from the injury. So I do think that there's probably just a little bit of like a mental block there for him trying to get through it. And, he is the face of the franchise and he needs to start acting like it.
Hmm.
The pressure is on him because he is talented enough to handle the pressure. We talked about it at the beginning of the season. If the Pacers want to be the best version of themselves, Tyrese Haliburton has to be their MVP. It can't be Pascal Siakam. And through the first two games, it's been Bennedict Mathurin for
Yeah,
both
it has
games.
though. Hmm.
So to me, it's like that's great. You're seeing what you want from Ben. That's not a slight on Ben, but this is a Tyrese problem. I don't care what Nimhard does, what Neesmith does, what Turner does. Those are role players. Tyrese has to kind of take the mantle and say, you know what, I'm the guy. And so I'm hoping that maybe we see that shift. I remember, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, where Tyrese had like a 1 point game. It was against the Miami Heat, right? He
Oh
scored
yeah.
1 point on a free throw. And what did he do the next game? He came out and dropped like
It was like 40 something, wasn't it? Like,
right. It was
yeah.
close. It was 40. It was
It was
maybe
like
like a career
42.
high.
Yeah, exactly. It was like 42 to 44 points at the time. I
Yeah.
remember it was like the classic he responded. One thing I want to give Tyrese credit for is he does respond. Like I almost feel like when he struggles most is when it wakes him up the most for the next game because I don't know if it's paying attention to the critics, but I always feel like even in the playoffs, like if he had a game where he just looked like he was not aggressive and kind of taken out of it, I feel like he's made that a point of emphasis for the next game. You brought up a great example in the past about that awful Miami Heat game and how he responded. I feel like Tyrese will respond in this next game because people are calling it like it is. He has not looked the same in a bit. I know he hears what's out there. I'm confident that he will respond, but we have every right to call him out on it. And I'm going to be honest, living in New York, and after we took the Knicks out, I got a lot of hate my way. I mean, people didn't wait until the game was over. Second, third quarter, just coming for me. Everybody exaggerating, of course, saying Tyrese is cooked. Like, oh, yeah, you can't even put him and Brunson on the same level. Like, he's got a target on his back now. He does. He went from being the guy that everybody rooted for, like almost like an underdog, to like, yeah, he is a star now. He's a star, and with that, stars get held to a little bit of a different level. And I think that that's why we have every right to call him out because he is our star.
I can't believe it. I can't remember if it was Grady or Doris Burke, but one of them said he needs a Mark Jackson. He needs someone to constantly be in his ear, like Mark Jackson was in Reggie's
Yeah.
ear. Now, Reggie to me was more of a stone cold killer
Yes,
than
exactly.
Tyrese. Tyrese is Mr. Nice Guy, right? Tyrese will talk when he's up. That's why they call him a front runner,
Yeah.
whatever. But, Tyrese is pretty even kill. I love Tyrese as a person. He's just
Oh,
one of those
definitely. Absolutely.
super laid back guys, and he's definitely just gonna, do the right thing. He's honestly just a tremendous human being. And I think that sometimes he's a little too nice on the court, and he
I
needs to
just got
have
a
more.
text. I'm sorry to cut you off. It says, "Is Halliburton really a star player?" It's still coming in. People are talking, so I'll let you get back to it, but it's happening.
Hey, all you got to do is send them back the box score of Game 7, and that'll shut them up real quick. Um, anyway, but to me, I know we got to move on here and talk about some other aspects of this game. But I think that honestly, like we could spend the entirety of the conversation on Halliburton just because that's how important it is. Halliburton's the head of the snake. Every team knows this. They're coming in game planning to take him out. But that's how it is with every star player. Everybody knows, oh, Jalen Brunson's the guy for the Knicks. Giannis is the guy for the Bucks. LeBron, AD, those are your guys for the Lakers. And they do everything they can to stop him, but those guys find ways to make the game, still super impactful because it doesn't matter what you throw at them, they're going to be able to counter it and find ways to score. So to me, it's like, it's not that these teams are coming in just completely just like blitzing Tyrese and shutting him down. Kel Bridge is a good defender and he's got some size, and yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup for Halliburton. But early on in the first quarter, we saw a lot of like pick and roll action with Karl Anthony Towns involved in that, and it was opening up some lanes for guys. And I really liked when they did that, and they pretty much just abandoned that once they got back in the game. So they didn't ever really find that connectivity. And I think that Tyrese, he's just got to look in the mirror and he's got to say, look, dude, you're capable of doing this. You were voted
Great.
as a top 15 player in the league last year by making the All NBA team on the third team. So you've got to show that you can do that every night and not just come out and be kind of mediocre. Mediocre is not going to cut it if you're trying to take this team to the next level. And so that's where I'm at with it. I really don't have too much else to say without like feel like I'm losing my mind over talking the
Yeah,
point, but I want Tyrese to find that joy again. I want him to find that skip again. I want him to
exactly.
be the best version of himself that we saw last year. And even if he gets to like 80% of that, that's better than what we've seen the last 10 months.
I think we could probably realize that, like, look, he's not the kind of guy that's gonna pour in 25 points per game per night. Like, he's not that aggressive of like a, hey, I'm gonna look to kill, 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 just like you're talking about with Reggie. But I do feel like this is a guy that is very capable of averaging 20 points per game again in this league. But he does need to. You got to dribble and penetrate. You can't just be standing there by the 3 point line or just waiting to catch and shoot. He's so much more talented than that. But yeah, I mean, look, one thing that was going well early on that I want to give credit for is Bennedict Mathurin's shot looked really good, and I felt that early on he had 7 points in this game. Shot was looking it just looked very smooth to me, and I felt like this could have been a big night for Mathurin, and I felt like they really went away from him, in that second, third quarter. I mean, he had like 11 points by halftime, but I felt like Mathurin was someone that was kind of getting into his own, and I wanted more Mathurin in the first half, and unfortunately, it kind of went in the opposite direction.
Let's talk about Matherin here for a second because I'll get to the good stuff here for a second in a second, but I do want to talk about how they utilized him in terms of the rotation because he comes in, plays incredibly well. They put the starters back in, pull him out with like 6, 7 minutes left in the second, and they slowly put him back in with like just under 2 minutes left in the second. And I'm like, they should have went to him earlier. He was
Really
cooking.
agree.
I was
Hmm.
disappointed that he didn't get back into the game earlier because he doesn't need rest. I mean, the only question that I was going to ask is, do they have a minutes restriction on Matherin because of the shoulder injury? Because that can make some sense. And then you fast forward and go to the second half. He's the last guy off the bench in the game. You got Ben Shepherd going in before him, and I'm thinking to myself, what are they doing? Like, there's still plenty of time, and it's like this has been your best scorer in this game. The Knicks, I mean, he was scoring on Mikal Bridges, he's scoring on OG. Like these guys really just didn't have an answer for him. And when he's going like that, I'm a little bit confused by how Carlisle was utilizing that rotation. And the only thing I think of is they've got minute restriction on him, and they're trying not to overplay him too many minutes because they want to slowly ease him back into it. But he's looking good so far through the first, at least the last 5 quarters, right? I would say he didn't have a great first half against Detroit. It was okay. Had some moments where Carlisle benched him in the third, but still, I mean, he's been consistently, you know, probably their best player
I'd say so.
overall.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of confused by the rotation.
So am I. I mean, I really am. I look like I felt like I'm in agreement with you. I said it. There should have been more Mathurin in the first half, and especially in that third quarter. I mean, goes scoreless in the third quarter. Heats up again. I think he had like 9 in the fourth. And I just feel like when you're talking about someone who can get to the free throw line, no one's been able to get to the free throw line like Mathurin. I mean, he had 4 free throws tonight. Turner had 5. I mean, barely anyone was really getting to the free throw line. But you also want to talk about another rotational move, like so what is it? Is the plan to play Jarace Walker like 6 minutes in the first half each time, and that's kind of it? I don't know how many minutes he would have had if this game was closer, but it felt like that is the plan to play him just a little bit early on, not too much, and it's just kind of hard to get a bit of a read on him.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that both games we've just kind of seen the team start out flat with the starters, and I think Carlisle is just trying to find something. I mean, I thought Jarris looked good tonight. I
Yeah,
really
so did
did.
I. Hit
I
a
was a
good
little bit,
three pointer early on, and then it felt like he just disappeared. And he played well in the fourth quarter when he had an opportunity.
and to me, Ben Shepherd hasn't shown me enough in the minutes he's played. I think he was a +1 right against Detroit. I don't know what he ended up being against the Knicks tonight, but I just when I was watching him play, like he had some moments, but I don't feel like he did anything substantial that would make me feel like, oh, he should be getting the minutes over Jarris. And Jarris had some nice steals in this game. He had some nice passes in this game. I like the length. I know that he's still trying to figure things out in terms of like getting the chemistry down with this group. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit baffled by it. The rotations for Carlisle, I mean, usually I understand them for the most part, and I think it's easier to kind of predict when it is the playoffs. But in the regular season, it is harder to kind of get a grasp on what they're thinking, why they're doing such thing. Maybe they want to give Shep some time. I don't know, but it was just weird to me because I I would have probably just continued to ride it out with Mathurin and Jarris in the second half and keep it the same because they need the chemistry together. They need to continue to learn how to play with one another. And that group of, McConnell, Toppin, and Ijax, they played together last year in the playoffs. But, I say all of that, but then at the beginning of the podcast, here I am complaining about the connectivity of the starters that played all that run together. So I don't know what to think, but I don't understand it. And I think that, less is more sometimes when it comes to guys in the rotation. You played almost like everybody on the team tonight because you're getting beat by so many points, but come regular rotation, I still want to see how they're going to play that out. But I just think Jarris needs to continue to get those minutes over Shep right now.
I completely agree. I've been disappointed by like his first half minutes, like I mentioned. It's almost just like he's making this like just small appearance that you really can't. I don't know if that's the plan. Like I think that's what it is because I want to say the minutes were seemed pretty identical in terms of what he played last first half again, and same with this first half. So I would like to see more. I don't think that there's anything that I mean you could see that he's taken growth, like he's taken steps forward. I'm happy about that. Isaiah Jackson making his debut. I liked what he did brought to the table in the first half. I thought that he immediately came in there, played well. If you're judging off of like a plus minus standpoint, like look, of course everyone's going to be towards the negative, but I thought he had some good moments where he was just kind of hustling, getting some rebounds, making some tough defensive plays. He had one time where Cat tried to take it right at him, and Cat he forced a miss for Karl Anthony Towns. I felt like it was good to get Ajax back. We're gonna need him back because while Enrique Freeman's getting minutes right now, like it's not the plan. It's fun to see him out there and develop, but how many games, how many meaningful games is Enrique Freeman going to be out there where you're in control? And I felt like that hasn't happened yet. The Pacers need to figure some things out. I hope Ajax can be healthy from here on out because obviously we haven't really got to dive into the James Wiseman news on an episode together, but yeah, that's a big loss with him being out, and Indiana's just got to kind of figure things out. And I really hope that they can get a feel for playing with each other right now. It shouldn't take that long, given this is almost an identical roster from last year. But, hey, it's live now. It's the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, continuity is huge here. I mean, and when I was watching the Knicks play, like I thought Josh Hart was very impactful in this game, right? I mean, he just was all over the place to me, kind of was the X factor for them a
You
little
need
bit.
those guys. You really do.
I mean, Mikal Bridges started getting, confident in his shot, had some big buckets there. Karl Anthony Towns, aka Big Purr. I thought I thought there were some times where he really just kind of like abused Miles down low, fighting for rebounds. And we know Miles isn't a great rebounder, but it just gets on my nerves. Like just seeing like a guy like Towns. A guy like Towns is known as being, and I hate to say it like this, but he's been labeled a soft, okay?
Yes, he has.
Yeah, and he's out there just like big
15 boards.
board. Yeah,
15.
just playing like a big dude down there. They just playing like a big guy, and it's like, where can we get the same energy from Miles every once in a while? Like, Miles, he's got some nice plays in him. He can do it, but it's just like I want to see like, how Towns was grabbing those boards over
Yeah.
Miles and just quicker to the basketball. It's like, I don't know. I mean, everybody was like flat-footed tonight, so I'm not just gonna start throwing names out there and picking on guys and things like that. But when you got a guy that in your same draft class that has dominated you. I was on a guest podcast last night with Knicks Fan TV. We aired it on this show. I went through and read the numbers from head-to-head matchups between Turner and Towns when they played against each
Can't
other.
be good.
It's not good. It's
Yeah.
like everything except blocks, Towns has dominated in terms of like how many games he's been like the better statistical scorer. And we know like when Sabonis was here, they would put Sabonis on Towns over Turner at times. So I don't know. To me, like I understand why they did that because they're trying to like funnel stuff to Turner at the rim and things like that. But with this version of the Pacers, they're not a great defensive team. And the fact that, they let up 123 points tonight and only scored 98, you know, it's just it's really bad. I mean, it's a really bad game. I'm not going to keep overreacting, but I just want to see more effort. And I'm hoping that this is the wake up call. I really do think this is going to be the wake up call for this team, Facci. So that way, when they come in on Sunday afternoon for the home opener against Philadelphia, no Paul George, no Joel Embiid, they should be ready to go. And if they're flat in that game,
They gotta be ready.
then
It's
we'll
like,
really start talking.
here's the thing. I don't wish that Philly had Paul George and Joel Embiid out there, but I don't want you to say, all right, you know what? Hey, let's just take it easy. We got Philly without those guys. We'll be all right. No, I want to see something. I want to see a statement. I really do think that the Knicks game was a good test early on, just like the Pistons was a good, tune up early on. Because I think that if the Pacers played 20 other teams outside of Detroit, they probably lose that game. But fortunately, it's a young Detroit team just trying to figure things out, and Indiana was just more talented. Now, nobody is overlooking the Indiana Pacers. We are the hunted. Think about this. I can firmly say that Knicks locker room, this game meant a lot to them. I guarantee they had this circled on their calendars for a while, and they punked us. Honestly, we're leaving Madison Square Garden, our tail between our legs, saying, you know what, today's not our night. Hopefully, we'll rebound and be able to, fight another night. But I'm happy that the starters didn't play that much in the second half, specifically not playing the fourth quarter at all, because they better be ready. 98 points is not Pacer basketball. I've said before, you might worry about this team defensively, but typically you never worry about them offensively. 98 is sluggish, and out of that 98, 34 of them came in the fourth quarter when this game did not matter. This was almost a 40-point game at times.
Right. I mean, and Carlisle, to his credit, he was displeased beyond belief at the effort from this starting group.
He's been displeased now for a long time. That is a game after game quote, I think, all throughout the preseason until today.
And that's what I was about to say. Like from the preseason on, like I've even heard him go on different like radio shows and just say the preseason wasn't good. It was kind of a waste of our time. And he's like, you got to get these because he was talking about the home opener or excuse me, the season opener in Detroit and like what he's kind of expecting for his team. So we had some good days at practice, but practice only goes so far. I really wish this group, and I told you I was a little bit nervous about that, right? Just they didn't take it seriously, and I don't want them to start feeling themselves a little bit because of the run they had last year. It was a little bit of fool's gold. We all know that. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to hear it. We know, though, for a fact that they took opportunities against some teams that were banged up, and they're going to be healthy come playoff time more than likely just because they have a lot of depth. I'm going to knock on wood here while I'm saying that, but it's just this is a team that has depth, that they have what it takes to win a lot of these games. And like the fact that, they were bringing it up in the broadcast early on, like the Pacers bench was just completely dominating the New York Knicks bench. And that's what their strength is. Like the starters don't even have to be even. They can be less than even because they know the bench is going to lift them up. But
Knicks
they
have
just
no
have
bench.
to
None.
they just have to find that balance. But I'm just, when Rick Carlisle is bringing it up, like Rick Carlisle's been around the block for a long time. So anybody that wants to sit here and criticize Rick Carlisle and say, "Oh, his defense will never win a championship," look, the players on his team are not great defenders, and so he can't really can do much with that because they didn't go out there and trade for two massive wings like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges on their roster and gut the whole thing, because if they did that, then everybody would be losing their mind too from players they had to give up. So, I mean, they've got talent. Jarace Walker is probably the most fascinating one in terms of size and the rotation and where he fits in, and how Carlisle's kind of utilized that. But I don't know. Siakam's got to be better. Nimhard, where's Nimhard at from game 3 and game 4 against Boston? That still waiting on that to show up. But overall, it's game 2. If you want to make you if you if you want if you want to make yourself feel better, Facci, Chicago walked into Milwaukee tonight and beat the Bucks.
They
Okay,
did. Hey,
okay.
it's early season. Look, these type of games are going to happen. Going back to your point, I do think that Indiana is feeling themselves. This is not the same hungry Pacers team with the chip on the shoulder that played up to their competition. I felt like last year, if there was a big game on the schedule, that was always like a challenge for them to say, like, all right, hey, you know what? We're going out against Milwaukee. Let's go. Let's beat them. We're going out against Boston. Let's go out there. Let's beat them. Just always trying to rise to the occasion. Sometimes they play down to the occasion because I felt like the lower games weren't as meaningful to them. But every game now, people are looking at us as an even team or a team that maybe is a challenge for them to take down. So we need to be able to respond to that. But yeah, it is early on, and I know that this is the classic, like, oh, the sky is not falling. But right now, I think this is a good wake up call. I think the Pacers can be able to rebound. I mean, in this game, let's just call it like it is. Haliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, they combined for 6 points. Like, that is just, you're not beating anybody if Haliburton has 6 points just alone. Those three starters combined for 6 points and 0 threes from your whole starting five, you're not beating anybody. It's just not gonna happen. But I'm confident we're gonna be all right. This was just one of those games that we looked at the schedule immediately. That's a loss. That is the opener on the road against the team that you beat, that is now not only healthy and wants revenge, they have significantly upgraded. So I can live with that. I can live with being 1-1. If we had lost that game to Detroit and we were 0-2, I would say someone's really got to step in and do something right now, because you could see the track that the Pacers are on. I just want them to get back off that track and get right on to, the track that everybody expects them to be on.
Yeah, and it's not going to get easy because they got to go home on Sunday, play Philadelphia. Like I mentioned earlier, no Joel Embiid, no Paul George. You do catch a
Have to win
bit
that game.
a bit of a break there, but immediately after the game is over, catch a plane. Now you're playing Orlando on the second night of a back-to-back in Orlando,
It'll be
and
tough.
that's one of the most physical and defensive teams in the league. So if you thought New York was good and defensive, just wait till you see Orlando. Oh, and then after that, guess what you got to do? You got to go back home and face the reigning champs, the Boston Celtics. And then after that, you're back on the road playing Zion Williamson and the Pelicans, a team that they absolutely got killed by on the road last year. So this is not an easy
Schedule.
schedule. They've got to come out there and they got to play, balls to the wall. They got to go out and give it all they got. They got to win these games early on. I mean, in a group chat that I'm in, one of my friends, he's like, I think the Pacers could legit start 3-7 to start the year, and I'd be freaking out. And then he said, "Here I am freaking out, and they're 1-1." And I thought that they might go 3-7 to start the season. So it's a tough schedule, game by game. Get better. Put this one behind you.
I'm going to say this. You cut it off after New Orleans. We play Dallas and Orlando the next 2 games. I mean, there's Charlotte, and then there's the Knicks, Orlando, and Miami twice. This is a brutal schedule. Like, I think if the Pacers are 500, halfway into November, at that point, I think that's probably a success given how hard the schedule is. So
Hmm.
things tends to even out. There will be a stretch where the schedule softens up a little bit. But yeah, I think this is the perfect time to really be able to look yourselves in the mirror and say, "Hey guys, let's get it together." The what we did last year no longer matters. No one cares about that anymore. It's a new year. You got to respond, and there's only so many games that Carlisle could be frustrated before, something gets done. No, we're not talking about any changes in the starting lineup. Of course, Mathurin plays well, and you got to talk. Is he going in the starting lineup? You don't panic like this and change the starting lineup after 2 games. I am happy that Mathurin has looked great, and I want that 6 man of the year potential talk to heat up. I want him to thrive in his role, but we're not at the point yet to start disrupting the starting five, because in reality the defense hasn't been great. You need some Neesmith, and that offense also has not been what it should be. So I think things will even out.
Yeah, I mean, and I like Neesmith. I think Neesmith's a good player. I think that he's just been struggling, but the whole team has been. And it's like, when you see
Oh my
Mathurin
God,
playing
no.
well and you see Neesmith maybe struggling a little bit defensively, you're like, okay, let's make a change. It's like, no, let this relax, pump the brakes. It's gonna be okay because if you put Mathurin on the starting five, what does that do to the bench? It makes the bench worse. So,
Definitely.
your bench is
Just
your
off the
strength.
bench ain't gonna be hitting like
Yeah.
Mathurin coming off the bench. I'll tell you that.
No, I mean they would stagger minutes, right? I mean, and it's not that big of a deal. Like he can still come off the bench and still maybe play more minutes than Neesmith throughout the entirety of the game. It's just, there was that play I tweeted out about it because I'm sure everybody remembers it. Mathurin was guarding Brunson, and Nemhard was out there in the game, but they went ahead and put Mathurin on Brunson because Brunson he just struggles with a little bit more size, and so he was not going to be able to get a good look off. But Mathurin kind of bought on the pump fake. It was in the
He
second
did.
quarter, I believe.
No, no, yeah, yeah.
So
He
it
did
was
on
it was
that
one of
three.
those plays where it's just like, man, if he can just learn how to stay down and stay disciplined, like that's good tendencies for a growing on ball defender. So I'm excited for what we have seen. I'm super excited from what I've seen so far from Mathurin, and I would continue. I want to continue to see him grow on both ends of the floor. But like we know this guy's a scorer, and like that's what I loved about his fourth quarter against Detroit. We didn't talk about this point specifically, but it was just the fact that he was so locked in.
Was
And when he's locked in as a scorer, like he's just on a totally different level. I like that version of him better when he's not thinking about it. But the passing, he's made some good passes here recently. That's kind of growing. But I love the development we're seeing from him. And you can tell this dude's on a mission. And it's just like, okay, now Tyrese, Miles, Pascal, jump on his back and realize where he's going and like, hey, let's do the same thing. It's a prove a year for everybody. It's not just a prove a year for Mathurin, who wasn't in the playoffs last year. This needs to be a prove a year for everybody because this is a talented team.
It's true, but now I'm starting to look at this like it's of course it's great that everybody got paid. The flip side, everybody got paid. And it's like you got guys that it's like you got to keep that hunger. You really have to keep that hunger. And I know that it would be crazy. Like you couldn't ask any of these guys. They wouldn't say like, "Oh yeah, I lost a little bit of motivation." No. But like I do know that contract year motivation type feeling. That's what Mathurin has this year. Like Mathurin has that I'm trying to get paid. I'm trying to prove everybody wrong. I'm back mentality, and like if that could be contagious across the board, that's going to be great. Like Indiana the last couple years has been slept on. This is that first year where it's like, yeah, they're not still talking about us like we want to be talked about, but we do have more nationally televised games. That's more opportunities to respond. If you don't respond like this, people are going to be like, why are the Pacers on national television again? Like, what are they doing? This was a big opportunity to start to generate that buzz for this year as like a team that's being forgotten about. Hey, back to getting humbled and back to say that we have not officially arrived yet. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's take care of business against Philly. Let's get back on track.
Absolutely, Flachi. Well, Friday night, me and you, we were hoping to have a little bit more of a competitive game to talk
Sure.
about, but we spent a lot of time talking about Tyrese Haliburton and what's going on with him. And I just think, we could have probably spent 5 to 10 minutes on each player,
Yeah,
especially in that starting five and what they need to do better. But if Halliburton doesn't get better, it doesn't really matter what the rest of the group does.
sure.
Halliburton has got to just he's got to figure this out. I know that he talked with Dustin Dopirak and Tony East in the media after the game. Basically, just said he wasn't worried about it. He's going to get in the gym and shoot and relook at the film and kind of see. But like, very, very non, responsive answer. Like not hot take-ish, not over the top. It's just, yeah, you got to move on from one game and get to the next. I mean, I heard him talking about it on McAfee's show, just saying, for NFL, you got to dwell on bad games for a week, but for basketball, you can move on in the next day because there's too many games on the schedule. So it's a good problem to have, the fact that you can put it away and every game's a new start for something special. But yeah, I think that, Halliburton, if you want to be up there with the upper echelon of the NBA, you got to go out there and earn it. And right now, you're looking like a guy that's just a role player so far. And I hate to say it like that,
Yeah.
but he's playing like a role player right now.
I know it sounds harsh, but the numbers don't lie. That's how it is. And I feel like last year he had this like, hey, if I could play 65 games and ball out, I'll lock up that all NBA type money. Like everything's happening, for him very fast, very very fast. Like he has, like I mentioned earlier in this episode, become a star. And I feel like it's like we got to just get back to the basics. Like you got to just get back to just having a lot of fun. When Halliburton's having fun out there, we tend to play really well. We tend to score a lot of points. One other, quick shout out. Hey, Johnny Furphy got out there, made his debut. It was cool. No real stats to report. He was actually 0 3 from the field. None of that matters. I was rooting for him. I would have been fine if he took 5 shots, 6 shots. I wanted to see one of them go in. Pretty cool to see him get that opportunity after unfortunately missing preseason. So look, there's been some young guys that have gotten some run, early on, and that's been fun. But I do think that I'm with you. The Pacers got to figure things out. Maybe it is tightening up the rotation, playing guys a little bit more, just kind of buckling down. Whatever it is, I'm confident Carlisle will figure it out.
I'm confident this team will be fine. I know that this game sucks. I'm not trying to overreact, but I do think that it's okay to be a little bit worried. It's okay to
Yeah,
have
it is.
a little bit of concern for what you just saw and what we've seen throughout the first couple of weeks. So we'll see how this team bounces back. And I just don't want to be dealing all season long with Tyrese Haliburton's a fluke. Tyrese Haliburton's
Yeah,
not a true star. It's like, okay, let's just stop there because he really is.
he is.
But the Pacers have to, and Carlisle and Halliburton have to work together to unlock that version of him. If the defenses are getting better, if this offense is not what it was before with Buddy Hield and Bruce Brown in the lineup, because a lot more floor spacing with those guys. And now you're really relying on a lot of guys. And to me, a lot of these guys don't have great one-on-one games. And I think that's what kind of hurts. Like I
Yeah.
think Siakam's got a decent one-on-one game when he gets the ball in the mid range. We know Nimhard can kind of stop on a dime and do that kind of stuff, but Neesmith, Turner, they're not those kind of guys. They're more catch and shoot. And Halliburton, his one-on-one game is good, but he doesn't do it enough. So uh, I think sometimes you just need more of a guy that can break you down and be a scorer. And hopefully somebody steps up. But I do think this is where the fan base is. They're clamoring for Mathurin is because he can do what they are lacking in that starting five. So anyway, I have nothing else to say about this game. Anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, I just want to say, look, you know what? If you're gonna lose, sometimes it just wasn't our night. Just chalk it up like that. You got the rest of the starters. Like, I think that we lost embarrassingly enough that it's gonna mean something. If this team lost by like 8, maybe you could be like, all right, hey, there was opportunities there. Nope, they never had really any much of a threat in this game, and I think that that's going to be something that they're going to recognize. We talked about it earlier. I think when things are so bad for Halliburton, that's really where he emphasized getting off to a great start. I would love to see what he does in the first quarter to really see that ball, go in the net because he had a slow first quarter against Detroit as well. That's back to back really slow starts. You can't always. We've heard before. He's even talked about on Paul George's podcast seeing the box score at halftime and be like, "Oh wow, like I'm over whatever. Like I should probably let me go out there and get some shots." You
Mm.
got to do that from the start of the game. I'm confident he will.
I am too. I'm not worried about it. I'll be at the game on Sunday, so hopefully it's a much better environment,
Have some
much
luck.
better team, much better performance, and the Pacers victory in front of their home court so we can put this negative talk behind us and have some good things to say. But with that being said, go ahead and quickly tell everybody where they can find us at Facci so we can wrap this one up.
All right, so you can find Alex on Twitter at Alex Golden NBA. I can be found on Twitter at _ FACCI. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Pacers Talk. Oh, wow, that's
Pacers
old
Pod
school.
STP.
Pacers Pod STP. Pacers Talk is back in the day. You can find us on TikTok at Set the Pace. You can find us on Facebook at Set the Pace. And Alex, tell them where they can check us out on YouTube.
I really need to stop making you do these like once a week
It's
and just
becoming
start
too
doing it.
inconsistent. We used to do it all the time. If we're skipping like 2 weeks, it's like, too many social
Uh,
media handles.
Yeah, go to youtube.com/setting the pace of Pacers podcast where you find all of our video content there. I don't know if every episode is going to make their way up there, but all of our game recaps will be on there so you guys can check that out. And hopefully you guys like the new graphics on the page. We did get some positive feedback on that, so hopefully you guys like that. I know some people were complaining about our cameras not being as high of quality. So, Facci might have to get some ultra HD cameras because people want to see our good looking faces that much while we're talking about this team. But, it's exciting to just be talking Pacers once again with you, whether it's good, whether it's bad. I love doing this podcast, and I hope you guys feel the energy, the passion. Is not supposed to be anything negative. We like this team just as much as you guys do, and we want to see them do well. So it's just us having a fair conversation and our opinions, and hopefully you guys will put your comments in the comment section below. Let us know what you think's going on with this team, and we'll listen to those and we'll reply, we'll read, and we'll try to give you guys a good idea of how we feel about that. But yeah, with that being said, Facci, if you're hoping the Pacers can kind of throw this one into the ocean, leave it there in New York and beat the 76ers on Sunday. Hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.